So here we have your pattern. We've laid down just a cardboard cutout that has some targets already on it just to save some time. So you can actually use cellophane sheets and just lay them on the perimeter of the 2D pattern. Or you can use a bit of cardboard like that, or obviously place stickers on top of the 2D pattern. So once you've got your targets laid out, the next step is we just grab the scanner. So here's the Go Scan. This particular scanner can capture color as well as 3D geometry if you want. So we just go over to the software, click Start. And once you're in the software, we can say if we want to acquire texture or color, we can set the resolution or the size of the triangles, and then we can just basically hit scan. So it's a good idea to start in the middle of the 2D template, and then we can just work our way out to the edges. And it's kind of like a spider web approach. And by doing this, what you're doing is actually reducing the volumetric deviation. So you're bringing that volumetric error stacking down, meaning that it's a lot more accurate. So I'm just basically like registering the targets. And in fact, you can actually scan the targets first before scanning their geometry. So it's just like the spider web, so I go kind of like in and out, and then back to the center each time. And you can pause it if you need to move your trolley around. And then resume at any time from where you left off. And you can see that the Go Scan Spark is capturing the color as well. Okay, so now if I want to get more on the edge or the side, I can just go down on a bit more of an angle, and I can actually zoom in. So I can just make sure that as I'm scanning along, that I'm getting all that edge information. So if you had a flat table, this would be a little bit easier. You wouldn't have to bend down. Just keep working around. And again, pause anytime you like. So it's just great that it's got this real-time preview. It also has like a distance meter, so if you're too close, it will go red. If you're too far away, it will go blue. So it really just gives you some really good visual feedback. Okay, so that's done. So once you press stop, you can have a look at what you've done. You can see it all there in crisp color. You can see any writing that you may have written. Then what I can do is I can create a plane and just basically cut away the concrete if I want to. So if I was to go add clipping plane, I could select 3 vertices and just pick the 3 points that I want to use. and then I can just keep moving up the plane until I eventually get rid of all the concrete, and that will go red. So you can see there's a bit of a lift there. We possibly could have put something on there to weigh it down, but this will just give you a good idea of how the software works anyway. Okay, so then we can hit create. Okay, so that's done. So the next step is basically like we don't need all the internal part really. So you could delete that and that would actually save you a bit of post-processing. So I could just select around here. And I could take that away. So I guess this is just a demo. So just select that and go delete. Okay, so once that's done, we can now finally finalize and create our final model. The good thing about careerform systems is that even if we scan at 0.8mm triangles, we can change the resolution after scanning. So once you press stop, you could put in a lower value or a higher value. So higher values equal less resolution, lower values are more resolution. And yeah, get a different result. You don't necessarily have to rescan everything. So you can see here we've got a pretty good amount of like wall detail, side detail on the side of it. So we can create a nice outline.
So using Peel.os Pro, we can go into the Scan-to-CAD module. We can then browse and import into the Scan-to-CAD Pro an STL file. Once it's imported, we can then create a few entities to help us align the part. So first we're going to create a plane, and holding Control we can click on the top face of the surface. Then click Create once we're happy with the selection, or click OK. While we're still in the plane tool, I'm going to change my selection tool to the brush. And then along the bottom edge, I'm going to carefully select just the side wall of that surface. Under constraints, I can make it perpendicular to the first plane that we created, just to ensure that it's square. And then accept. And what's nice is once I've set something perpendicular, it will remember that for the next plane that I create. And we can then accept that next plane. Once we have the three entities we need, we can do an alignment. So if we click on the alignment tool, I can then set my base plane as X and Y. I can then set plane number 2 as YZ and number 3 as XZ. And that just places the origin onto the corner here. Once aligned, I no longer need to see my entities. I can then launch into the modeling tools. So if I click on Create Sketch, I can set my ground plane as XY. And I can reduce the section offset, will go downwards, and that will start cutting through the 2D template, but it may not get all of the side wall. I may have to go further, but we also have another way of doing this. By ticking silhouette, it's going to take an outline of the outside edges, and that will give me what I need to create my sketch. Click confirm once you're ready, and it launches you into the sketch mode. So now what I'm going to do is click on the line tool, and I'm just going to click and draw along the line and then escape. Otherwise, if I wanted to, I can hold Control and click, and it will just start selecting segments of it and then generate a sketch from that. As soon as you let go of Control, it creates the line. So it's another way of doing it. Then I could go to my constraints and make sure everything is horizontal that needs to be horizontal. Since I flipped the view, this will make more sense. So I've got the horizontal constraint. I can then drag over everything that was meant to be horizontal, and that will constrain that horizontal. Go back to vertical. Now holding Control, I can drag over top of what's meant to be vertical. I can still change the offset of the line, and it snaps to the polyline. Next, I'm going to get the offset tool and just start to offset, the corner trim tool, and just start to trim the lines that I need to trim. Okay, and just to check, it did place the lines onto the origin, which is great. So it found the nearby axis to begin from. Then what I need to do is just add a few dimensions. So I'm just going to create those. So this is quite typical in CAD. And then I'm going to add an angled dimension. Okay. Once I'm happy with that, or I've over-constrained it, I can then type in what dimensions I want. So for example, I can make that 450. I'll just delete this angle here. Okay. I could come over to here, make that 1125. Make this one 430. 175. 1510. And 1120. Okay, so let's say I'm happy with those dimensions that I've created. I can then accept the sketch. Once I've accepted that sketch, you'll see that there is a sketch outline. I can then get the extrude tools just to show you that we could extrude that template. But if we're just needing to send it over to Solidworks for further design, we could just right click on our sketch and just transfer that to Solidworks. The dimensions are just asking for us to accept those, and then it creates a part file and imports that sketch into Solidworks. You'll find the sketch in the tree, right click on it and edit it, and you can still make changes to it even after importing it into Solidworks.